So good afternoon, happy Wednesday, and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to be looking a little closer at manufacturing process management and how to better process, have access to, and share data, and how this will benefit the manufacturing department mostly. So my name is Rob Romanowski. I'm the Director of Sales Operations with 3HTI. Joining me today on our panel is Jeff Gavio, our Director of Marketing, as well as leading the presentation, the overview and the presentation of Windchill's MPM Link is Zach Carson. So if you have any questions as Zach is presenting, feel free to type those into the chat box, and we will, or in the question and answer box, and we will try to answer them as we go along, but we'll definitely answer all those questions at the end. So Zach, without any further ado, take it away. This is a pretty tremendous tool, and it's definitely worth its weight in gold. So
definitely. All right, so yeah, today, thanks, Rob. Today we're going to be going through Windchill MPM Link. It stands for Windchill Process Management. If you couldn't guess from the name, it's really all about manufacturing. So it gives customers a bridge from design to manufacturing. And you'll see how this is done today through the use of really process plans and MBOMs and work instructions. So when we talk to people in the industry, we position this as a tool because a lot of them are facing pretty similar challenges around this. The design process is slow and tedious. And during design, or during that process, teams like manufacturing often become unproductive because they're waiting for designs to be completed and released. I have a manufacturing background. I know this is a huge problem. I've dealt with this specifically. Manufacturing is constantly getting put behind the 8-ball so many times because of the design process and because, frankly, of the engineering side of things. A lot of times, at least from my own background, there was just simply a disconnect between engineering and manufacturing. Manufacturing had no insight into product development or changes with the product, so they ended up spending a lot of time just figuring out the resources they need, whether that's gathering information or getting in contact with the right people, and then on top of that, actually learning the assembly. There was times for me, manufacturing would have no idea a change was happening, so they might have already assembled 20 units, and then when we roll out a change, they have to go back and redo all of them. And then obviously what that means is you have a lot of rework, tons of downtime, it's expensive. This is the stuff that we preach constantly. When you have that disconnect, there's really just inconsistent data management and translation between those two departments. And really what that results in is teams using out-of-date BOMs, out-of-date drawings, and again, just being unaware of changes to designs and assemblies. And that's what causes all the rework and the higher costs and potentially a huge delay in time to market. On the engineering side in particular, there's often an inability to reuse manufacturing processes and resources. Sometimes that's because it's difficult and tedious just to transfer everything to new projects or products. And then sometimes just because engineers simply can't find data in the system. They don't have a system that's easy to use and search and reuse objects that already exist. So what happens then is people end up creating 3, 4, 5 copies of the same part in the system, and they'll all have different part numbers, even though it's the same object. Because of that poor data sharing, essentially everything is becoming a one-off design, and that really slows your design time and your time to market, as manufacturing is really starting behind the 8-ball. You know, the designs that they're going to end up, or the products they're going to end up assembling, by the time it gets to them, they're already behind schedule. So yeah, they might rush or they might cram in overtime to meet deadlines, but a lot of times you're just simply going to miss those deadlines. Ultimately, this miscommunication, this disconnect means big increase in manufacturing costs, slower time to market, and unfortunately, sometimes it even means dissatisfied customers. The solution that PTC has to these challenges is Windchill MPM Link. So this allows you to create and manage all of your manufacturing specific data and processes in parallel to the design data in Windchill. So in doing so, you're giving manufacturing their specific BOMs, drawings, even work instructions, like you can see on this slide, that they're actually able to work with while the engineers are still completing or fine-tuning or making changes to their own designs. In terms of the capabilities with MPM Link, you'll have a different bill of materials. This is going to be a specific manufacturing BOM that's going to update as the design BOM, the initial BOM actually updates. So you can create separate BOMs for different teams like manufacturing. Today is what we'll talk about, even for service or other specific BOMs that you want. So they can be working on that while the design team is then iterating the original BOM that the MBOM has been created off of. Okay, so it's not slowing manufacturing down at all. It's just giving them information that they can work with and that is tailored to them while the designers and the engineers are continuing to perfect their own model. Next, you're able to define and manage every detail of your process plans from a particular plant that something's being assembled at, down to the user who's going to be doing it, down to the workstation it's being assembled at, and even the tools that are going to be used to complete the job. And then lastly, you're going to be creating these visual work instructions like on the right. So you can include as much detail as you want in these to give manufacturing every piece of information that they'll need for the operation. And that's the whole idea. Even if this is the first time that they've seen an assembly, make sure that they have all of the information that they need there to do it right the first time. All of the resources, even the tools, will even include visualizations like you can see here that show a representation of the actual model, that you can highlight areas on different steps or maybe circle a hole where a bolt has to go. So they know, even if it's the first time they're looking at this, if it's a new product or just something they haven't worked with before, they know exactly what to do for each step and make sure that there's no unexpected downtime. So now that gives you a little bit of an introduction into what MPM Link is, let's jump over into Windchill and we will go ahead and walk through what this tool actually looks like on the Windchill side. So we're going to start here by just opening up a front wheel assembly. That's what we're going to work with today. If you've been on these webinars before, then you might have seen this assembly or subassembly in a previous demonstration for the front wheel. And a couple things that we're looking at here. So first off, as we opened this up, the initial BOM is, if you're someone who works in Windchill a lot, it's going to be your design BOM. What you can do is you can see in the parentheses at the top, you're going to be creating specific BOMs for the different departments. As I said before, manufacturing is the one we're going to be working with today. You can see it in parentheses at the top. What you can also do is just set this as the default for users or different roles. So let's say you have people from manufacturing that are going to be working in here. You could just have this BOM as the BOM that they're going to see by default whenever they log in and search for a part. In this case, one of the related objects that we have for this manufacturing BOM is the process plan. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And I'm going to show you what an end process plan actually looks like, and then we'll go through the whole process of actually creating one of these. So you can see here in the structure on the left, rather than just your typical like BOM part structure here, this is actually the structure for this process plan. There's different parts that are within this that make up that particular step of the assembly. There's different users who are going to be completing on this step. If you look at the first one, you could actually see assembler level 1, inch, pound, torque wrench. So there's the tools that we're using. And what happens then is once all this information has been allocated to a step, if I just go to that top level process plan, I can have Windchill generate work instructions for me from this. And that's what you're going to see here. And this is ideally what your end users, your manufacturers or assemblers or technicians or whoever, this is what they're going to be using to complete the procedures. Right, so I just scroll through this visualization on the left. You can create different views. You can add comments to those. And then on the right is all of the information that the end users are going to need to complete that step. So it could be descriptions. It's going to be sort of a broken down parts list for each step, documents that are associated to it. If they're actually using this on the computer, then you could actually click on these different components and see them individually. Or if there's a document or a PDF or something for one of these steps, you could open that up. But you can also just print these out and it'll take this exact page that you're looking at. Now, as I said before, we're going to start from scratch and essentially recreate those work instructions. So you'll get to see the whole process. For this, we're going to be using a different assembly, which is the crank assembly. It's still used on the same product, which is the Pro car that we've worked with on previous demos. But if not, this is just a crankshaft that's used on that car. And the first thing that we need to do, the first step in creating that process plan, is creating the manufacturing BOM, because that's what the process plan is going to be pulling information from. In order to do that, we're going to use a tool in Windchill that you get through MPM Link called the Manufacturing Associative Part Structure Browser. And you can just get here from the original bill of materials. And basically what this tool does is this is the BOM transformer tool that is going to allow you to take an existing BOM, in our case it's the design BOM, and create downstream BOMs of this. So a lot of this is just going to be copy and paste. You can say, you know, in this case, I want to create a new downstream branch, which is manufacturing. And the whole idea here is these BOMs are now associated. So if the upstream design BOM changes or any of the parts get modified, then you can automatically push those down to the manufacturing BOM as well. So you're making sure that even though these are separate BOMs that different people are going to be using, they're still related to each other. They'll still update simultaneously. So even manufacturing, they're always going to be working from the most up-to-date information. Now, what you'll see here is even in that downstream BOM, there's parts that I copied, but I can go in and put new stuff in there as well. And this is where you're really tailoring that MBOM. As you might know, there's information in different BOM, or there's information that a manufacturer needs that designers aren't going to put in their BOM. So when I think of that stuff, I'm thinking something like we have here with this consumables kit. So maybe it's that consumables kit has anti-seize or it has lubricant. Well, what we're doing is we're putting that stuff in the MBOM as well. So it's tailored to manufacturing. Now, what we're adding could be new parts completely to the system. So this, as we're doing this would actually be creating new WT parts. You could also just reuse parts that you have in the system. So if the manufacturing consumables kit was a pre-existing WT part, you could just search it here and add it to this MBOM. Once you're done, then just like any other BOM or any other object in Windchill, going to go ahead and check this in. And once it's checked in, then maybe this will probably kick off a workflow so that you're actually going to have this BOM reviewed before it just gets released. But for today, we're just going to get straight into the process plan. And I can do this right from the window at the bottom. I'll just go to the process plan tab. You'll see nothing's there, but we'll go ahead and make a new one and give it a name. And then we'll get into actually allocating the resources to this. All right, so I'll go ahead and open that up and go to the structure tab. And what you'll see is in this case, it's blank. There's nothing for that process plan there yet. So this is where we need to actually go in and start to build this plan out. Now, a lot of this is going to be reusing what we already have. The first step is actually to just say, how many steps are there going to be in this plan? In our case, we'll keep it relatively simple. We'll just do 5. And the whole idea here is really just to build these out in a way that makes sense. More than likely here, you're just going to rename each step, whatever is happening during that step. So you want to mount the crankshaft for step 1. Step 2, you want to assemble the connecting rod, so on and so forth. And then we'll break this down even more and get into each step and start giving these steps different parts, different users, different tools, different visual representations for them, and give the manufacturing everything they need. Okay, so I have the steps built out there. Now what we're going to do is we are going to use what we call the tree picker. And this is actually going to take the MBOM that we just created, and we are going to start dragging and dropping the different parts to the step that they're associated to. And what you'll notice here that really makes this easy to visualize is I have the original visualization in the bottom left, but as I'm taking parts of this assembly and I'm allocating them towards steps of the process plan, they're actually disappearing from the visualization in the bottom left, and they're appearing in the one on the right for the process plan. So it gives me that visual understanding of what all I have allocated and what still needs allocated to a step. The last thing here is the piston, and then you'll see at this point, all of the actual modeled items have been allocated. So the last thing that I need to do is just take the lubricant and put that in the step with the connecting rod. But what you remember is that's just that new, it's not necessarily a modeled part, but that's that new WT part that we added to the MBOM in the manufacturing associative part structure browser. The last thing that we'll do here is we'll actually get into more detail and we'll start to bring in plant information. So for this, I'm literally saying for this particular location where this is going to be assembled at, these are the users who are going to be completing each of these steps. Maybe this is a full-on assembly and test process. So you would have potentially assemblers go in and maybe complete step 1 through 3, and then you have QA that inspects the 4th step, and then you have maybe a service technician or an electromechanical technician come in and actually do the testing on it. You can include that all in one process plan if you want. You could make separate process plans for it, still related to the same assembly. That's up to you. And all this is, if you haven't noticed, it's pretty simple. It's just drag and drop. I'm just searching for the different information on the left, and then I'm dragging it to the step that I want. Now that we have the actual resources for each of these steps, we'll just come in here, and this is all really extracurriculars, if you will. So I'm going into each step, and maybe I'm giving it a label number, or I'm putting in just a very short description, and I'm giving it a setup time, labor time. So actually for the manufacturers who are going to be completing this, they'll know whenever they look at this process plan, how long each step is expected to take. That way it'll help them have an idea whenever they're going through and maybe manufacturing a handful of these at the same time, or one at a time. It doesn't really matter, but they'll have an idea of how long they can spend on that versus other tasks that they might have to have completed by the end of the day. It's pretty good. Now at this point, I'm going in here. I can see that I have all these checked out because I just created them. So we'll just go ahead and check them back in. And this is officially going to create this process plan for everyone to look at. At this point, we really have a lot of the heavy lifting, I'll say, for this process plan already done. Just took a few minutes. So what I want to do here is I want to give them a visual representation of this. So I'm going through for each one of these steps, and we don't have to do this, but this is really beneficial for the end users because we're putting a representation on each one of these, and then we'll actually use Creo View to go in, or you even could use Creo Illustrate and create an animation. But we're going into Creo View today, and we are going to take this model that you're seeing on the right, and we are going to give them different views, different zoomed views for different components, orientations that really give the end user a good look at what they have to complete and where to complete it on the object for that particular step. I can't tell you how many times in manufacturing that I saw someone completing a task or an assembly for the first time and just staring at the BOM and staring at the drawing and then staring at the actual piece of equipment, trying to figure out where they have to complete a step, even if it's as simple as screw the ground wire into this hole, and they literally can't find it. They can't find if it's the right one. That's obviously a very simple use case, but this stuff is happening all the time. So just by using these visualizations and putting them in the process plan, it eliminates all of that, because as they're completing it, they're going to see exactly where each and every component needs to be placed and assembled onto the object. Within this, it's not just taking a picture. I can come in here and add comments in. I can put in different, even metadata from Windchill if I wanted to insert an attribute for whatever reason. So let's say I wanted to put life cycle state on here as for an example, I could do that. But it's really just, again, giving people that are going to be completing this task all the information they need. Now, the one thing I will say when you're doing this is as you're making these viewables, make sure they're pretty good, they're pretty zoomed in, and they're easy to see what you need. Because whenever you take that viewable and put it on a process plan, it's going to share that level of zoom. So if you are very zoomed out, then whenever someone goes to look at the process plan, they could open up the individual part or open it in Creo View themselves and look at it, but it is going to be to the same scale of what we're doing now. So make sure it's easy to see. And I'm not going to go through and do all these for the sake of time, but we'll just add visualizations on a couple of them. Once you've done that, then all you're going to do is you are going to save this annotation set, and this will be able to be attached to each one of the steps within that process plan. So those are the only two that I'm going to do for today. And what you see here is then if I go to the attributes tab, the last step that we really have to do, and we're not going to go through this for each one, or at least in detail, is just to add in descriptions. Now you can bring in, you can do formatting here. You can create lists and bullet points. And the whole idea is just to give them as much detail in that description as they need to make sure that if it's their first time, they're still completing this right. So I'm going to do, we're doing very basic descriptions here, but you'd want to add a lot more detail for this, maybe even a numbered list so that whenever they get to a step, they can almost see subpoints. With that process plan created now, all we do is with the click of a button, I right click on the top level process plan, and then now I generate work instructions, and you can see here, it's pretty similar to what we looked at in the beginning. They're not quite as clean, not as much information, but we knew that was going to be the case. But you can see here, it's everything they need. So if I were to click on this visualization, they could actually open it in Creo View and see this in more detail, and then zoom in and interrogate it and click on different components. You can see here how long, they can see the time breakdown for this step, have an idea how long this is actually supposed to take them. You can see the long description, which in this case is actually a short description that I added in just to see that spec sheet. But you can even see the allocated parts if there were any for this step. the inspector in this case who's going to be going through and actually doing this. So in this case, it was just an inspection. It's not actually the assembly. If it was the assembly, you'd see the allocated parts here. But you get the idea. It's just give them every piece of information you can to make sure that first go around, this thing is being done in a good amount of time.
So Zach, questions just came in. Can any portion of this process be automated using script or custom script?
Yes, but that is something that you are going to have to write.
So the customer writes the script for
Yep.
Windchill.
Yep, they'd be able to write the program and automate it through that.
And then we can help implement it.
Yep.
Because that's what we do.
Exactly. Is that the only question?
No, there's another question. I didn't want to. That was a question that was pertinent to what you're talking about here. So
Oh, okay.
The other question, there's another question that came in, but we can answer it at the end.
Yeah, this is really the end of the demo. So I just want to recap here briefly and summarize really what this can do for you, and then we'll answer the question, hand it back off to Rob. So the whole idea with Windchill MPM Link and really how this is going to benefit you is by giving you a single globally accessible PLM system to design, which you know, to plan production, and now to synchronize with other tools that the manufacturers and the designers are using and accessing all of that information in one single system. You get concurrent design and manufacturing bombs and processes, which are going to help you avoid downtime or wait time on engineering to get the necessary resources, and then to make sure manufacturing is always working with the most up-to-date information. Lastly, it provides well-planned and repeatable processes where designers can reuse previous designs and then add information to create thorough work instructions that get manufacturing to work faster, where they can complete assemblies more efficiently with less mistakes, and as a result, save your company money with downtime and improve time to market. So that is all that I had planned to go through. Let's go ahead and tackle some questions.
So another question that came in says, are there any tools that notify the manufacturing team of changes to the design BOM, or is that left to the mechanical engineer to compare the E-BOM and M-BOM on a regular basis?
That's a good question. So yes, whenever there is, you can have flags or notifications sent out. So whenever something is changed, that it will also be updated, or that they will also be notified of that update. The other part of it is you could just have them within a workflow. It doesn't have to be every assembler, but maybe it's a manufacturing manager, a shop floor manager who has some review or role in that workflow to either be involved in reviewing it before it gets released, or at least have them notified so then they can make sure that the right people are going to be accessing or are aware of the new process. So there's a few different ways, but yeah, there's different tools that would do that.
Another question is, what is the best or suggested way to push this data to a mechanical engineer or the mechanical engineering team?
I mean, they're going to be involved in the workflow. So they're going to really be the ones that are, I guess the designer would be the one making up the changes, but the mechanical engineers are going to be involved in the whole process.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. MES, he meant manufacturing execution
Oh, okay.
system.
Yeah, so
sorry about
part
that.
of that depends. That's okay. So I guess it depends if you have Windchill connected to an MES system yet or not. If you don't, then Windchill uses an open API. I mean, we can more than likely connect to that system and have some level of pushing or pulling the information, and even getting that involved in maybe a step of the workflow, so that an actual step of the workflow is to push this information to an MES system. But otherwise, it's probably going to be an export if you're not connected. And that's really how you would get it to that system. You'd have to do an export from Windchill and then an import into the MES.
Excellent. So I think that hit on all the questions.
Okay.
Cool. So, so that's going to conclude our webinar for today. If you think of anything later, or you want to get in touch with us, or you want to see more of a customized demo for Windchill, whether it's for MPM Link, whether it's for BOM management, it could be for supply chain, whatever it may be, feel free to just contact us at info at 3hti.com, or what you can do is you can just reply to the email that I sent out regarding the invitation for this webinar, because those come directly to me. We will have this recording up on our YouTube page within the next, I guess, 24 hours, and we'll have an email sent out to you so you can view the recording at your leisure. I want to thank everybody for being on today, and our audience for asking some good questions also. And Zach, thank you very much for leading the presentation and the demo. Thanks, everyone.
Sure thing.
Have a great day. We appreciate your time. Take care.